Hello everybody, it's time to post another video. I thank everybody for the subscriptions and the vinyl community for welcoming me with open arms. Definitely feels good to be part of something, and especially a passion, which is music and or collecting vinyl for that matter. Just a little intro about me. I've been collecting for about 10 years. I would say collecting for about 10 years. I've been listening to music since I've been about 12, so good stuff all around. My genre of choice is, of course, going to be 60s music, kind of the 60s psychedelic garage scene. Really just got into that recently, just probably in the last 3 years, I would say, just way over my head at this point. So, which is good. This is kind of where you want to be, I would imagine. If you have an obsession, if you have something that you love, you want to kind of take it to the limit. What I'm going to talk about today is, and I hope we get some comments about this. Definitely, if you want to post a video response, comments, it doesn't matter to me. Video response, that's the gold on YouTube. But how do you do your musical research, I guess, is a good question. How do you discover new music? How do you find those gems that are in your collection? Me personally, I'm going to answer the question here now, but the way that I do it is I have quite a few different things. I read a few different magazines. I have some here that I will show you. The first one is Shindig. This went from being a bi-monthly magazine, it was a lot smaller, to now they're doing it quarterly, which I think is pretty good because it's a pretty thick book, but they pretty much cover the obscure side of 60s music, more so psychedelic folk, UK kind of folk, prog music. They hint on a little bit, and of course soul, which is like pretty much totally awesome. Here's another magazine that I used to read this a lot more than I do now. Mojo, this is how old this one is. This is when Dylan, this is like from December, so this is the last one I bought in a while. Mojo is a great magazine, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't hit on as much of the good stuff that I listen to now. Now, years ago, I used to work at a radio station. I would buy this pretty much when I'd be sitting there doing a board operating, position, and I did. I pretty much read this cover to cover. There's still really good music in here. It is a good way to find new music, as well as a lot of the classic stories. Dylan, the Beatles, Rolling Stones. There's really not too much left to say about those bands. So it's really when they print something like this. Like, for instance, this is when the Dylan mono vinyl was reissued, basically. But it's kind of one of those things where it has, for $10 a month, let's put it this way, for $10 a month, to me it's not worth it. So you think about it, in a year's time, you're spending almost $120. I never did the subscriptions because I heard that they, especially in the United States, that it was something where you may not get a magazine 1 month. So I just bought it from the newsstand, or just bought it from the local record store or whatever. But I did read them quite a bit, not so much anymore. They always have a really nice CD that comes with them. That is a good way to discover some music, because usually the compilations have a lot of stuff. Even at this point, though, they kind of seem to be getting a little bit redundant. So I don't want you to turn you off on Mojo, but if you like, if you're really into like the 60s, 70s kind of music, those are the big hitters of the genre. Definitely pick up that magazine. I would say it's better than Uncut. I think they're still making Uncut. And then also like Q Magazine or like Classic Rock Magazine is pretty much all that, like pretty much like 70s metal kind of things. So, but again, Shindig, I think it's fantastic. Definitely awesome. Like, the art in it is great. Its layout is fantastic. And pretty much everything that's in here is something I'd be interested in. They even go through, the pretty neat thing is that they do like books from the era, so like books from like the 70s, like the sci-fi books and things like that. But they are just awesome. I love them. I haven't been collecting them since day one, or reading them from that. Collecting is a hard word to say there, but it's just great. And there's a lot of, it's UK based, so a lot of the there's a lot of imports in that, that are really good that you can't get in the United States that are worth finding. The captions are always funny. So there's Phil Spector, and it says, "And then I shot her," Phil Spector in the Ronettes, instead of, and then he kissed me. So it's just kind of like, little dark humor like that you kind of expect from a British magazine. But at the same time, they have, new music that kind of fits into the genre, folk. There's the 60s, 70s. They go through kind of each decade or so and do this. Shindig, great magazine. Usually about $11 for that, but since they've gone quarterly. You think about that's $40 that I'm spending on something I really want compared to $120 that I maybe would get, a couple articles. Mostly you get the CDs. But next thing that I read a lot of is Ugly Things, which this is more like a fanzine. When I first got Ugly Things, I've probably been reading it for maybe like 4 or 5 years, I would say. It's definitely overwhelming if you're not really familiar with like the garage rock genre. There's a lot of bands in here that you're just like, who the heck are these people? The cool thing is it's just that like magazines like Mojo, where these bands might have like a footnote like that are like this much on the magazine. It's a whole entire article about this, or an interview. So there's definitely some good stuff. Definitely the worst part about this is this is actually like an annual, like once a year, or twice annual, which I guess would be semi-annual. So a lot of the reviews in that are already, they're basically it's almost 6 months have passed by the time they get it. So that's kind of the only downfall with this, but at the same time, there's tons of good music that they tell you about. Here's a whole spread for international artists, which is, 13th floor elevators and things like that. You're not going to see an article like this or even an advertisement like this in Mojo magazine. So, sorry to keep knocking on Mojo, but that's one of the reasons why I don't read it anymore. So, about $9 for this, and look at that, just fantastic. Of course, they always have the big article or the big advertisement for Sundays on the back with just basically your checklist on all the good music to get. So 2 more things I guess we'll do real quick. I don't want to make this video too long. In musical research for me personally, I have delved into 45s a lot, which it seems like looking at these videos on the vinyl community, some people have a few. I think Dan from Canada, I think he would go through some of the 45s and all that, but it seems like most of the people are kind of LP based. I have quite a few 45s, just for the sake that a lot of, again, going back to the 60s music, a lot of that is, you think those artists are single based, whereas, the same kind of thing would happen in the 80s. These people would have, one album with their hit, and then the rest would be sort of filler. But in the 60s, more often than not, you have a lot more artists that are just singles based. And even if you look at current music today, we've sort of kind of gone back that way, where on iTunes, like, why would you buy the whole album if you could just buy the one song that you want? So in the full scheme of things, that sort of happened again there. So I'd also like to think, if you have any thoughts on that, definitely shoot some things down here. So one of the reasons why I brought that up is just because of Price Guide to 45 Records. I absolutely hate price guides for the fact that, anytime you go to, maybe if you're going to like thrift shopping, or even if you go to, the flea market, okay, here's somebody that, okay, they've looked at eBay and they've inflated the price on something, where if, you think about Beatles records, where Beatles, they were million sellers. They sold millions of albums, and you'll come across, and I know everybody on this community is probably, if you've ever bought a Beatles record, you've experienced this, where somebody has had a record that's just been completely destroyed, and somebody is asking like bulk price for it. So price guides, I think, are a double-edged sword. But the best part about price guides that I definitely enjoy is just like, if you think about it, it is a definitive discography for like artists. You can go through and okay, this came out this time. This is their single. This is this. This is this. It's a great way to kind of know what the artists have done. So even if you just kind of look at it in that aspect, which is usually the way that I do it. I mean, you know, buying records and all that, it's a good way to kind of know what you're getting, because obviously there's tons of pressings out there. You know, somebody may be charging, you know, 20 bucks for a record, and you're like, oh, okay, and it's, you know, an 80s repress that's worth 5. You know what I mean? What it comes down to, I mean, the music, you know, the music definitely matters. It's all about what's on the record, but at the same time, you know, you don't want to be taken. You know, you don't want to be paying for something that may not be as rare as it is, or if you find something that is rare, that, you know, you want to make sure that it's, you know, that it is legit. You know what I mean? It's not like a, you know, a later repress or anything like that, and you're not paying that price for it. So, you know, buyer beware, I guess. And also too, and I, you know, don't mean to be a hipster here, but the with the Goldmine magazines, there's one, or Goldmine price guides. There's one, the Guide to American Records, basically, you know, basically North American records for that matter. It was like $35 or like almost $40, but it comes with a PDF file that is basically the exact same album. So rather than like lugging around, you know, like a telephone book that's this big, I actually just got an app on my iPhone that has, here it is here. I mean, it's basically, you know, the magazine, or the book basically, where, you know, you can go through and you have everything and it's in your pocket. So that's one thing that's really cool, where, you know, if I'm ever out shopping or anything like that, you know, it's right on my phone. I have my phone with me. So that's one, you know, one thing that I definitely utilize quite a bit. And last but not least, I'm just going to throw this one in here. This came out probably, I think, about a month ago at this point. It's called Endless Trip. For those that are into, you know, the psych genre, anything like that. Oh Lord, this is some fantastic reading right here. Pretty much what it compiles is, you know, if you can just see some of the, you know, you got 13th Floor Elevators, Funhouse, Grateful Dead, MC5, Strawberry Alarm Clock, Buffalo Springfield Doors, Monks, Neil Young, Steve Miller, Captain Beefheart, Quicksilver, Messenger Service, Love, Birds, Tim Buckley, you know, and on and on and on and on. Basically all those awesome records that fit into that very small, you know, psychedelic genre. As a joke, of course. But what they do is, it's pretty much, they'll take maybe 2 reviews from like Rolling Stone or Cream, you know, Rolling Stone when it had credibility, Crawdaddy, any of those magazines from the 60s or the 70s. I don't know if there's too many from the New Musical Express. There might be, I can't remember. It's hard. I'm looking. Most of these are U.S. albums, so you don't really see things like that. And then they have usually 1 or 2 like modern reviews. So it's like basically in the time when the album came out, what people thought of it, and then at that point, what people think about it now. So a lot of these albums have kind of aged where they don't sound as, you know, they may be classics, they're not dated, things like that. But it's good. There's definitely a lot of knowledge. This is pretty much my summer reading. I went through and I looked at every single review, kind of, okay, I have this album, I have this album, I have this album. It's 40 pounds. It's not how much it weighs, but that's how much it retails for. I got this for 70 bucks, I think. 70, I don't know, maybe 79, something like that. I can't remember. Price does not matter when it kind of came to this. So if you're into that kind of music, definitely this is a great album, or a great album. It's a great book. Galactic Ramble is sort of the UK version of it. So hope I haven't rambled too much. Again, I appreciate you watching. Definitely leave your comments. You know, what do you use to research? How do you find new music? You know, do you do a lot of reading? You know, let me know. All right, take care.